our parents are alive inside us, and much more alive inside us as we think they are. And to get in peace with yourself, part of the whole process is to get in peace with your parents. It's very difficult to get in peace with yourself if you're not in peace with your parents. It's like you're basically rejecting part of yourself in rejecting one of your parents.
Ja, dat is wel heel zielszuinig goed.
Ja, het is
Ja, dat gaat wel niet.
So, we left with the fertilized egg the day before yesterday, which is there, which I said from the beginning, basically it is alive. It is alive. And of course in Holland people in very early stages say, okay, it's okay to abort. And partly the excuse for that is the mind makes this excuse is because it doesn't have a brain yet, a nerve system yet. So, you can abort. It's not a problem. So the morning after pill is not a problem. What I'm saying is not against abortion, but it's the mind who always finds reasons why something is right or something is wrong. And it makes much more sense to look at, what's the reality? It's life. And do we have the right to stop life? This has nothing to do with the life itself. This has to do with the mother, or maybe the mother and the father, who are pregnant, to make a decision. This has nothing to do with the child itself. And this is important because this is also where the responsibility is. And I'm bringing this forward partly because when there is an abortion, then it's a loss. It's a loss of something. And often this is not seen to the depth. You lose a pregnancy. You lose a child which is growing inside yourself. It's a loss. And when you look to the whole grief process, often what you see in this loss is that also guilt is playing a role. And working with women who went through abortion, there is almost...
And you're talking not miscarriage, you're talking about forced
Both.
labor. No, because the word, it bothers me because I know there are two kinds of...
There is an active and a passive abortion.
Yes.
And sometimes this is confused as well. When there is a miscarriage, as you say it, sometimes, the parents feel incredibly guilty because they did something which they normally wouldn't do. They went to a party, they both got drunk, and a week later there is a miscarriage. So could it be the party? Could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be that you fell from the steps? Could it be that you ate something wrong? Could it be that you were such a rage with your husband that your body reacted to it and you don't want this child anymore? Or because you said it and you made me pregnant as well and then you miscarriage? It's a loss, and it's the best way to look at this, and our mind is trying to find reasons why this happened, or we do it active, but guilt comes in very easily. As in every loss, guilt can come in very easily. And it's something kind of, to really look into. Because even every loss, even if you wished for it to lose, is painful. It's a whole process to move through. And what I've met in my practice a lot is if a person is losing a child, have an abortion, active or passive, there is always the fear that the next time it will be more difficult, or maybe a child will not come anymore. Or it has quite an influence on if the next child is coming and how you relate to the next child. Grief can be part of that relationship. It could be that you're much less confident and much less relaxed in the pregnancy, or in the pregnancy which comes after that. It could be that the father, after the loss of a child, a miscarriage, has a difficulty to kind of bind again to the new pregnancy, so he's much more absent, not really involved that much anymore, because it could miscarriage again, and this was painful. So it can bring a lot of complications, which is important to look at as well. And to give space to talk about, because this is often not talked about. It's one of the taboos. So when we look into the egg being into the womb, so at a certain moment the egg is moving into the endometrium, and then from the egg endometrium, from the umbilical cord, this is the implant of the egg, it creates an umbilical cord, and from this there is formed a whole tissue, which in the beginning is much bigger as the child. The child is like this, and the tissue is big, which is all flesh and blood of the child, growing to meet the endometrium. In this meeting position, there is a changeover of oxygen, chemicals, and also all kinds of hormones.
You're talking about what is forming the umbilical cord.
Yeah, the placenta.
The placenta.
I'm talking about the placenta. There's a changeover of oxygen. There's a change of basically so that the child has enough oxygen and can release the CO2. There's a changeover of chemicals, building chemicals for the body, so that the child can build his body up. There's a changeover of all the information which is in the blood of the mother. And this changeover of what's in the blood of the mother has an influence in the organization and the formation of our nerve system. This is important to understand. In this, our mother is our first teacher to be human.
Can you repeat it? All the information that's in the placenta. Okay, so in the placenta, and then you said there's all the information that helps to build the nervous system.
Yeah, it has an influence on the nerve system and how the nerve.
Everything is in the placenta is having the influence on the nervous system.
The changeover of information between the mother and the child, biochemically and on an emotional level. The child is absolutely unconditional in the mother. I try to explain it in a different way. The child is absolutely unconditional there in the mother. It moves with the mother with every mood, every feeling, every thought, every emotion which is coming forward, every activity. The child is part of that. It just moves with the mother. Every emotion, every feeling, every action we take, everything we do has an influence on the biochemistry of the blood. Different hormones are released. Different amounts of sugar are released. It has an influence on the blood. This blood is reaching the child. So the child makes the connection between emotions, moods, feelings, thought patterns, and the biochemistry with it. So basically, this is why we can recognize each other as humans. Because, when a person is angry, we feel it and we reproduce a little bit of the biochemistry of the anger inside our body. We recognize it as anger. You understand? It has a biochemistry. This biochemistry is taught by us, by the mother. The refinement of it is taught by the mother. If this is not happening, we have the biochemistry, genetic, but the refinement, how to connect it exactly with this, that basically already when we are in the womb we start to learn, and we also start to learn about basic attitude towards emotions. That means if the mother doesn't allow herself to be angry, what is built in our blood if we get angry is also the chemicals which are suppressing this slightly. You understand? It's the starting position. We learn.
What position?
The starting.
It's a starting position.
Position.
Okay.
It's a starting position. That means that everything is formed in a way when we're in the womb, when we get born, that we can understand the mother and her reactions.
Can you explain again, because I didn't understand, about the anger? If she doesn't let herself be...
If she is not allowing herself to be angry,
Okay.
so she represses anger, then there will be both anger as the repression of anger in her blood. The whole conflict you can see back in the chemicals of the blood. The child feels it and relates to it. This is basically what's coming together with anger. It's an automatic almost pattern then to repress anger as well. You understand?
But more simply, stress creates a hormone. There is
Yeah.
a hormone connected with stress. This is fact. So the level of stress to the refinement that the mother is carrying, and the whole range of it, from less stress, which is like the born-in stress she got from her mother, all the way to the most stressful moments, which happen also during the pregnancy. This whole range is recognized already and integrated in the baby as a reality of being human.
And then the suppression again, no.
Just give the simple biochemical emotional
It's a
equation.
learning, you said.
It's a learning. So, when a mother is very easily angry, what you see there is anger, adrenaline is going up, and there is a lot of adrenaline in the blood. But the baby moves with it unconditionally, and she learns, okay, with this emotion, this is freed, and there's some other stuff in the blood as well. It's more refined, is what I'm saying. This is freed, and that's how a body moves in anger. You understand?
And so the infant will adopt, that will already be coming into their body.
That's the
So
basis.
that's how they're going to move with anger.
That's the basis of how you're going to move with anger.
It's a pattern.
It's a pattern, it's the basis. This is biochemically taught to the body. You understand?
You said
But
that we get the patterns not from the behavior, but from this
it's already inside the womb.
exchange.
This is the basis.
From the placenta stage.
Yeah,
So
exactly,
that
it's already
we
the
learn
basis.
To do it without copying the behavior.
Exactly, it is copied.
It's the
It's
chemical,
copied because this is how
Genetic
copy.
imprint.
not genetic but chemical.
biochemical.
Chemical imprint.
We have the genetic imprint, but we also have the biochemical imprint. That means if the mother is angry, but there's also a lot of cortisol in the blood. That means that when there's anger, the baby automatically will also make cortisol after it's born, because it goes together with anger.
Fuck from the start.
We're not fucked with the start, but it's important to understand, and we can look at it, okay, we're fucked from the start. No, it gives us the means to really understand the mother. It gives us the means to be able to communicate very fastly. We don't have to find the wheel from the start. So all this stuff has an influence on how the body is growing, but also on the nerve system, how the endocrine gland system is starting to work together with the nerve system. All of this we learn in the mother, and we learn from the mother. You understand? Partly of it is genetic, but the refinement which is there, we learn through the mother. Also, the relationship between the father and the mother, and how the mother is reacting to the father, is imprinted in the baby. How she's reacting to the environment is imprinted in the baby. If she goes out of the house and she goes into a group of people and the baby sense this. The sensing is not only inside the body, but it's also outside the body. So the baby is sensing what's happening also around the mother and the reactions of the mother on this. If the mother goes out of the house and she feels very unsafe, that will give already the message to the baby that it's unsafe to leave the house.
We're still talking about the in utero. We're still talking about the infant
Yeah,
in the
okay.
womb.
Inside,
Wat dan?
the foetus.
Okay.
All of this, we basically learn to have a basic attitude which is according to what's going on with the mother. If the mother hates the father, and the moment the father is coming there and the adrenaline is going up like crazy and the cortisol is going up like crazy, this has an influence on how the baby will relate to the father in first instance. First instance. I'm not saying it stays like this, but first instance. And this is important, because the most important thing for a baby in the first stages of life to survive is to move with the mother. This is survival.
Surrogate mother.
That's a whole learning process. That's a whole learning process which goes on. It's not that our mother is our only example, it's the basis. But we all look like each other. That means that we, although I'm coming from Holland and you're coming from Israel, we can understand each other's emotions and feelings. It's more look-alike as that is different. In the refinement, it's different. How you move with your anger is maybe different from how I move with my anger. We can understand each other's anger, but how we relate to it is different. And that's in the basis the imprint from the mother, and then everything we learn through our lives is adding to that.
No, I'm talking about in
Surrogate
vitro,
mothers.
in a surrogate mother.
When
She's not going to be your mother as soon
But
as
you
you're
do
born,
see the
you're
genes
taken
of
away
it.
from her. You're a gene of some other woman, you're going back to the gene of your mother, or maybe a donated egg, or whatever, but you were carried for 9 months, but another woman who you'll never see again, but
So
you
what's the
learn
question?
her patterns.
Yeah.
How does it affect the baby? Does it confuse him?
It will not confuse, but in the beginning it will be more difficult. You need some time of adjustment to each other's biochemistry.
But actually in this you see the total genius, because what the baby is getting inside the surrogate mother is also the contract she has made with the mother who will take. It's already happening inside the womb. Meaning if the surrogate mother is feeling safe and secure and free in releasing the baby, this is coming through and I mean authentically, biochemically, this is coming through as a signal to the baby. If there's an issue, this is going to be an issue in the child's life as well. So it's already being prepared inside the womb for its own destiny.
Yeah.
So even in this case, there's a genius in it.
Yeah, absolutely. You see how it works? So the influence there is already, and it's very deeply imprinted. It's biochemically imprinted. It's how we bring biochemistry together with emotions, feelings, refinement, even thoughts. Atmosphere of thoughts. How we learn to bring this together, to be functional human beings. This is important to understand. There's very little being talked about it. We influence each other. It's not only in the womb, but in the womb is the basic learning. And then your whole environment is influencing you all the time. So if you have a surrogate mother, it takes some time to biochemically attune to the new mother, or to the real mother, or whatever. It just takes some time. It's not the end of the world. We can do it because we're doing it our whole lives. There is not something as a better parent. I think every parent really does her best, cares about the child, if it's a father or a mother. Of course there's exceptions, but we all care about our children. We try to do it the best way we can. We are all incredibly helpless in parentship. Yeah, we basically don't know exactly what we're doing, and we don't know exactly how to do it. We can read 1,000 books, but if we very rigidly bring up our children according to outer authority, this is not either. You know, it's maybe for you to be the best parent, but it's not less harmful as a person who kind of, you know, says, okay, I try it on my own way, what I feel. It's a different style of parenting, and we can criticize each style of parenting. But basically we can only be the parent we are to our children. So there is, and we all may make mistakes, we all do things we regret later, and we think, oh shit, that was not really handy. What is
therapy?
Yeah, but therapy is possible, and there's other influences. Happily, you're not the only influence on your child. There is also school, there is friends, there is James Bond movies, there is all kind of things which influences our children. Other relationships, parents of friends, the things which happens in their life.
Right, and these patterns can be changed during the life. I mean, changed not
They're
the
very-
mind, changed from the core.
They're the primary biochemical reactions to certain situations.
So it will be always like that?
No. And that's basically what happens before 4 years old. Old psychiatrists would say, you cannot change that. This is kind of so deep, I think you can change it, but it will take a lot of time and a lot of effort. It's not necessary to change it, but to learn to relate to it in a different way. Not to identify with it as this is the truth.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
And often, in the beginning, when we form an I, we identify with these reactions because this is our fundament. This is how it is. A little child thinks what's happening in their house is where it is everywhere. What they feel is what everybody feels. You understand? And also, some 90 years old children are still thinking this. What I think, what I feel, everybody is feeling.
And then it comes as a shock when it's not.
Yeah, when you're 90, I'm not sure if you ever get the shock. But some people are still in this belief, in this.
Also, this is what we talked about yesterday, the process of realization. When you access inside yourself these atmospheres, there is already a freedom created, which biochemically can create a change. If biochemical response to this core of freedom wasn't possible, then there would be no escape from anxiety disorder, depression, and you see people move in their lifetimes, for example, through periods of chronic depression where they really need medication, to periods when they're really free, or maybe for the rest of their lives of it. So the biochemistry is extremely both responsive to our behaviors and attitudes and inner freedom, and also reflecting where we're caught. For women that go through the menstrual cycle and pregnancy and all of this, there's a deep knowing of this, because we become very much surrendered to our own biochemistry in terms of the whole pregnancy female process. You know, this time of the month, your personality, your feeling, your experience literally changes. For me, when I get pregnant, even if I was Joan Collins' businesswoman 2 days before, when I'm pregnant, I get goo-goo. I see little children, I get tears in my eyes. It's completely hormonal. It's not
me, it's the biochemistry.
It's out of my control. It's what nature is doing. So change is definitely possible if we move out of patterns of creating stress, and stress levels is something we inherit. It's one of the things we're really inheriting, the amount of stress carried in the family. Before we get to the refinement of whether it's towards the father or the male or towards whatever it's about, the amount of stress factor, when we move beyond stress and begin to drop off stress through a process of inner growth, it changes our biochemistry, which changes everything, because then the experience back is already not generating more stress. Yeah. So,
and then the postnatal, I mean, there was the prenatal influence of the hormones and biochemistry and build the patterns, and then the postnatal life, when the mother moves through this process that you just described, it will maybe, yes, influence the kids.
Exactly.
The same,
Exactly.
Of the depression.
Exactly. So what you find is if a mother in a family which is all grown up already, even a grandmother, opens this space, it's like the family are molecules. We're always, as molecules, like the sperm and the egg, we're seeking harmony. So if one of the key notes of the family changes the tune, changes the vibration a little bit, becomes more free, everybody else is also partly freed. It's loosened. In the first thing, it can be at a level of beliefs and mental. Change is possible. There's a freedom, you can sniff it. Which means that the absolute atmosphere of the family, the way we are, is no longer absolute. Mummy is not vibrating like that anymore. She's flipping round. You know?
Oh my God!
You're not my mother. You're not my mother anymore. I don't recognize you like this.
Aren't you angry?
Yes.
At a certain stage, I hadn't been in touch. I hadn't had much communication at all with my mother for over a long period. We were communicating, but I was here and she was in England. To a certain stage, I made a very deep movement beyond allowing and in a way freeing, realizing a very, very deep rage, which led to a lot of calmness. Not in any way taking the anger away, but I realized it as kind of so much part of who I am that it's really okay, this rage. Within 10 hours, I got a phone call from England. My mother is in a panic that I'm really, really, really angry at her. And I'm really, really upset. And what's going on? And I hadn't spoken to her for 6 months. The only thing that had happened was an energetic shift. It's like,
Inside you.
yes. And of course it was exactly the opposite. You know? For the first time in 35 years I wasn't angry with her.
Something is going really wrong.
The status quo was shifted energetically.
Well, I'm even wondering actually, because once you, inside yourself, were not angry, and had for so many years, one of the main connections between you or you towards her was the anger piece. And now that anger piece had just been released and just shifted. She is not necessarily, whether she's feeling you anger or not, all she's feeling is that you're not connected to her in the same way.
Exactly.
And if you're not connected to her in the same way, the only way she can interpret that would be you must be angry at the action. But actually it was anger keeping you as connected to her as you were.
Be angry. And then began a long process of feeling very, very forsaken.
לא נכון, פתאום היא דוחה אותה.
You feeling?
My mother feeling very, very forsaken
Yes.
suddenly.
Yes.
But at the same time, a deepening of trust. But this we're talking over a period of
Because it
years.
allows her to change as well.
And the building of something which is much, much stronger than a relationship based on that.
Based on rage, mutual
Because
rage.
now she can become something different.
She
Since
has
you're
to-
not holding her in the position of just being the target of your anger, all of a sudden she's free to be other things.
sharing
Yes.
it.
Sharing other things, which are also inside her.
Which for her is an opportunity. So the other family members have a choice then, or they can divert the pattern elsewhere and find that home elsewhere, and just deal with the dog that's the exception to the rule, or they have an opportunity for freedom, but that's really not in our control.
No.
The best service we can do is to allow the freedom in ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So that means even if we're far away from each other, based on this basic biochemistry, which is also transformed in patterns of behavior and how we relate without words, also in families, to certain emotions. It's automatic. It's just automatic. You know, the idea in some houses that you kind of say, I want, is not possible. It's learned to you, it's not possible, but it's basically, it's automatic. You don't say this, you don't do this. These are the rules we don't move over. You understand automatically. They're so deeply inside ourselves, this you don't do. This is not possible. And when we see another person doing something like this, we are deeply shocked. Because it's not possible. They're very little simple things. And they're automatic, they're inside our system. And I'm not talking only about behavior that you walk in a house and you open up the fridge, you know, but I'm talking about how you deal with emotions, how you speak them out, how you give form to them, feelings, how you give form to them. Is this possible or not possible? How you relate to them. So there is a whole complex here we take absolutely for true, for granted. So this is reality. This is how it is. This is how we do it. This is where you stand as a female, and this is where you stand as a male. We have both sides inside ourselves, and through the mother we get the first imprint. What is it to be female and what is it to be male? Where do you stand as a female and where do you stand as a male? If there's a difficulty in the relationship between the father and the mother when you're in the womb and you are a male, it's an insecure ground where you stand as a male, how you give form to yourself as a male. It's difficult.
Is there a difference over time between mothers who know the sex of their unborn babies and those who do not know the sex? I mean, up to 20 years ago, you didn't know the sex of your baby.
No.
Because a mother may relate differently to her born fetus, male fetus, or her female fetus.
Absolutely has an influence.
But if she doesn't know, or she does know on a lower basis, on a biological basis.
Most mothers know because they feel it.
I see.
They feel if it's, and sometimes it's
So the
surprise because you
biochemistry
felt
knows.
something else.
Yeah.
But basically, subconscious, we know what's growing
Oh, so it
inside
isn't that much of a
ourselves.
difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also amazing. Just remember my last pregnancy. I knew the minute I was pregnant. I felt it. I knew it. I knew the gender. And I made the test 3 weeks after, and it was negative. And I told my husband, it doesn't matter. The test is mistaken.
Yeah.
It was mistaken. Wow.
Yeah. When you're an experienced mother, then
I felt
you
every
know. Yeah.
movement. I think in the etheric
Yeah.
of that pregnancy. It was the only pregnancy that I
Yeah.
felt.
The late one, the last one?
It was the last one. It
Yeah.
was. And the gender, the first ultrasound, they told me it was a boy. I said not to them.
That's beautiful.
Again mistaken.
Yeah, it's beautiful that these mistakes are coming forward, kind of basically there to strengthen you and your self-confidence. Because it's amazing, because I'm sure this doesn't happen very often.
No.
This is really seldom. And 2 mistakes on top of each other is interesting.
Yes.
It was with
While
the
you're
same
so
child.
sure.
Same.
Yeah, while you're so sure.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it just was so deep knowledge.
Yeah.
That I needed no test. I mean,
No.
it was only for the doctor because he consisted on it. And for the environment, the family. I didn't need it.
Yeah. That's beautiful how that works.
I'm sorry, I need to go.
And it was so...
They're waiting, I have all the food in my car. And it's going to be a picnic.
You need to go?
You need help with anything?
Do you need help with anything?
Hmm?
Do you need help?
No.
Okay. Okay. So the next stage, basically, when we look, the baby is growing in the mother, is unconditionally one with the mother. The mother is the universe. Like, you know, we are living on this planet, on the earth. Right now, the earth is our ground we stand on. And around the earth is a universe. So we're more focused on the earth, but the whole universe has an influence on the earth as well. How the earth is moving through the universe, around the sun. All of this has influences. So it's the same with us. The mother is the earth, to say it like this, is the universe, is the first connection. And then everything what's happening around the mother is the extended universe, has an influence as well on the mother and on us. So it is totally different if a pregnancy is taking place you know, in a very safe position for the mother, or pregnancy is taking place where the mother is in a position where her life is threatened all the time. Again, what Georgi brought forward is the stress levels are totally different. And these stress levels leave an imprint on us, on our whole biochemistry. These stress levels are normal. This is the normal stress level which is taught to us. This is the normal stress level. In this stress level we feel at home. So again, the movement deeply inside yourself to move more in things like peacefulness, stillness, silence, kind of helps to kind of move also out of these stress levels, which seems to be normal for us. But often we find ourselves in situations in life, if we're not able to move more inside ourselves and find other areas inside ourselves, which is just a reflection of the stress levels we are used to. So
that's a real effort that needs to come into play, that needs to be practiced in order to shift what feels absolutely natural. And I'm speaking only from my personal experience that I know the amount of stress levels that was in my mother when she was pregnant with me, and how that continued in the house. And so I know how hard it has been for me over years to even believe that there is a place within that is still and is quiet. It's not just a spiritual quest to find that still place inside, but rather a real effort to say it has to, to even know that it even can exist, such a thing. Because whether it's more like this or less like this had to be there all the time. This kind of something like that.
It's like an internet. There's the home page, the home stress, the home fear.
Exactly.
No, the home page.
Home page.
But you can move to another folder.
Yeah.
Until you get married and then MSN crashes into your homepage. Google is gone.
Google is gone, yes.
You have to search through MSN to get back to Google.
But it's, I'm saying this to myself to realize that there's like a piece here between the psychological or psyche and the spiritual. It became a spiritual quest, so to speak, to find the still point. But it's actually not a spiritual quest to find that still point. It's something of the innate, inherent place in us that you keep referring back to, that still place is always with us. And for somebody coming out of even moderate, because we weren't living in a terrible condition or life-threatening or anything, even a moderate stress level, to even know that still point is there, would be. So you're saying also that this is a real practice in shifting a biochemical process that exists in me. Yes, if I understand this correctly.
And this is not only, when we are in the womb, absolutely. But it's also in a family.
Yeah, of course.
And in a country.
There you go.
And it's biochemically. So what you see in Israel, in the background, there is a lot of stress because of maybe pogroms, Shoah, whatever. There is a lot of unsafety.
It's a collective homepage.
As a collective homepage. And what you see is, even if there is not so much reasons to be stressful, Israelis have their own means to keep the stress level up, because it's impossible to move below it. It's biochemically uncomfortable to be too relaxed. It's very nice to be on a holiday in Amsterdam and feel more relaxed, or in New York, which is not really relaxed places. To find yourself in the woods, in the middle of nowhere, as an Israeli, is possible, but not many Israelis are choosing for this, to really move into deep relaxation, although a lot of them are choosing for that as well. But generally what you see, it's nice for a holiday, but you come back in Israel and you very easily move with the same stress patterns again. Beep, beep, ma, doof.
You
don't move, you generate it. It's active,
right,
it's not passive.
Active.
And
You generate it to feel home.
Not only that, what we really see is when you see Israeli travelers, young ones, abroad, which we are the highest statistic of travelers in the world.
Exactly, yeah.
And that there is, the pure example is there is a road in Bolivia, which is one of the most dangerous roads in South America. More Israelis die there than any other tourist. There is consistently, everywhere you go, Israelis are seeking out the extreme sport. They have to come up, raise the adrenaline. Coming out of the military, that's going to be something they're going to have to keep that level up in order to really, or smoke themselves into oblivion.
It's just, yes, exactly, exactly.
Yes, that's right. Another numbing. If I can't keep it racing going, how do I numb and quiet the system? I need to use something from the outside to suppress the system down.
Yeah,
I mean, I know these are generalizations, but this is just from a lot of,
yeah.
and this is again the age right after the army, so it's very high.
Yeah, it's very hyper maybe, but the army is most of the times quite boring. If you don't have to fight.
But we're talking about the military here. So.
Yeah, the military here also, you know.
It's just an experience, it's not the
It's
army.
No,
it's not,
the
that's
stress
what I want
level.
to give forward. It's the stress level which is kept
Stress level
up.
in the military. There
Yeah.
is a stress level in the military.
Yeah, but the stress level in the military is nothing else as the stress level which is, it's reflecting the country, it's reflecting the people.
Sure. Sure.
It's reflecting, this is really kind of important to understand is that, you know, because of the stress levels, if the stress is going down too much, we need something to kind of feel home again. So we need uproar, we need war. You understand? This is almost a biochemical, physical need. Yeah, we can say addiction. I don't want to go in judgment in it.
I don't mean it as a judgment.
No. I really want to see this. This is a movement which is created between humans, because also the countries around us are moving in such a cycle. The whole humanity is moving in such a cycle. It's not one people. It's all the people together who are moving in very heightened stress levels. Heightened cortisol, adrenaline levels. They're not in peace with themselves. They're surviving. And we do a lot as humanity to keep the survival going. Because this is what we know. This is where we feel home in. This is how we relate. This is what life is. And in our minds we can think that we want differently, but to move differently we have to move through a lot of discomfort. Because it's really in the beginning quite a suffer and discomfortable to move into a different position inside yourself. To move into peacefulness in the beginning is the whole body is reacting. There's an itch here, there is an itch there, there is such a disquiet connected with the stress level which is inside you, in which the body is reacting to it. And to learn to ignore that, to just leave the body, to ignore the busy mind. This is part of the stress level. To move to this silent place in which the body gets used that something else is possible as well, that takes time. You don't do it like this. It's an effort. It's work. But I think it's important work, otherwise, I think Georgie too, otherwise we wouldn't do this job. Every parent really does her best, cares about the child, if it's a father or a mother. Of course there's exceptions, but we all care about our children. We try to do it the best way we can. We are all incredibly helpless in parentship. Yeah. We basically don't know exactly what we're doing, and we don't know exactly how to do it. We can read 1,000 books, but if we very rigidly bring up our children according to outer authority, this is not either, you know, it's maybe for you to be the best parent, but it's not less harmful as a person who kind of, you know, says, okay, I try it on my own way, what I feel. It's a different style of parenting, and we can criticize each style of parenting. But basically we can only be the parent we are to our children. So there is, and we all may make mistakes, we all do things we regret later, and we think, oh shit, that was not really handy. What is,
Years of therapy.
yeah, but therapy is possible, and there's other influences. Happily, you're not the only influence on your child. There is also school, there is friends, there is James Bond movies, there is all kind of things which influences our children. Other relationships, parents of friends, the things which happens in their life.
Right, and these patterns can be changed during the life. I mean, changed not
They're
from the
very-
mind, changed from the core.
They're the primary biochemical reactions to certain situations.
So it will be always like that?
No. That's basically what happens before 4 years old. Old psychiatrists would say, you cannot change that. This is kind of so deep, I think you can change it, but it will take a lot of time and a lot of effort. It's not necessary to change it, but to learn to relate to it in a different way. Not to identify with it as this is the truth.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
And often in the beginning when we form an I, we identify with these reactions because this is our fundament. This is how it is. A little child thinks what's happening in their house is where it is everywhere. What they feel is what everybody feels. You understand? And also some 90 years old children are still thinking this. What I think, what I feel, everybody is feeling.
And then it comes as a shock when it's not.
Yeah, when you're 90, I'm not sure if you ever get the shock. But some people are still in this belief, in this.
Also, this is what we talked about yesterday, the process of realization. When you access inside yourself these atmospheres, there is already a freedom created, which biochemically can create a change. If biochemical response to this core of freedom wasn't possible, then there would be no escape from anxiety disorder, depression, and you see people move in their lifetimes, for example, through periods of chronic depression where they really need medication, to periods when they're really free, or maybe for the rest of their lives of it. So the biochemistry is extremely both responsive to our behaviors and attitudes and inner freedom, and also reflecting where we're caught. For women that go through the menstrual cycle and pregnancy and all of this, there's a deep knowing of this, because we become very much surrendered to our own biochemistry in terms of the whole pregnancy female process. You know, this time of the month, your personality, your feeling, your experience literally changes. For me, when I get pregnant, even if I was Joan Collins' businesswoman 2 days before, when I'm pregnant, I get goo-goo. I see little children, I get tears in my eyes. It's completely hormonal. It's not
me, it's the biochemistry.
It's out of my control. It's what nature is doing. So change is definitely possible if we move out of patterns of creating stress, and stress levels is something we inherit. It's one of the things we're really inheriting, the amount of stress carried in the family. Before we get to the refinement of whether it's towards the father or the male or towards whatever it's about, the amount of stress factor, when we move beyond stress and begin to drop off stress through a process of inner growth, it changes our biochemistry, which changes everything, because then the experience back is already not generating more stress. Yeah. So,
and then the postnatal, I mean, there was the prenatal influence of the hormones and biochemistry and build the patterns, and then the postnatal life, when the mother moves through this process that you just described, it will maybe, influence the kids.
yeah.
Exactly.
Of the depression.
Exactly. So what you find is if a mother in a family which is all grown up already, even a grandmother, opens this space It's like the family are molecules. We're always, as molecules, like the sperm and the egg, we're seeking harmony. So if one of the key notes of the family changes the tune, changes the vibration a little bit, becomes more free, everybody else is also partly freed. It's loosened. In the first thing, it can be at a level of beliefs and mental. Change is possible. There's a freedom, you can sniff it. Which means that the absolute atmosphere of the family, the way we are, is no longer absolute. Mummy's not vibrating like that anymore. She's flipping round. You know?
Oh my God!
You're not my mother. You're not my mother anymore. I don't recognize you like this.
Aren't you angry?
Yes.